Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our new guest, Mr. Dave Alexander, introduce himself to our listeners and viewers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dave. Nice to see you.
Okay, you could do a little better, maybe a little bit more. Tell us about yourself.
Smile less, talk more, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm the author of the Confederation Saga, and that is published through Athon Books. If you like fast-paced, mercenary-based, clone-based battle stuff, then check out my series.
Hell yeah.
But you were also in the Navy, so you like long romantic walks on the beach with other men. You enjoy...
Yes, only if they have bell bottoms.
Oh, only if they have bell bottoms. I was going to say you enjoy a Dixie cup on occasion.
Yes.
Or a cap, whatever. Sometimes both at the same time.
I definitely put the dicks in Dixie cap.
Well played.
Oh my God, well played, sir. I did not see that one coming. I approve.
I didn't. As a wow.
You should have.
So before we get started, though, sir, we got to tell how we first found him. So we're not going to bury the lead. Dave sometimes masquerades as his real self, where he also publishes things under Drew Avera. We'll link to his stuff in the show notes as well. He's local-ish to me, but we met in Vegas, of all places. Doing nothing nefarious, I promise. It was a book conference.
It's Vegas. Nobody believes that shit.
Now, we did meet at a bar, so there is that.
Yeah. There was a lot of people there, so we weren't really showing out the way better.
We actually seemed like the soberish ones, but mostly because years in the military, we could hold our liquor better.
Yeah. Well, I was sober because I don't drink, but yeah. All the veteran guys actually did do pretty well. It was all the civilians that were looking all staggery.
So we were doing some business deals at that bar. So I actually, after the first couple, paid the bartender to like make a big deal about how he was loading mine heavy and how are you still walking. But they were virgin drinks after a certain point because it worked, man. Got to do some deals. But it was definitely fun times. Don't let his little man status fool you. I mean, he is my favorite midget. All right, like he's like I think 4'11", but it's cool. We don't judge.
Wow. 4'11".
I'm joking. I don't think he could have gotten in the military that short. Maybe the Coast Guard. I don't know.
Who's that?
I was making a joke that you were a shorty. You're not. But
who, me?
Yeah, I said at 4'11", maybe you could get in the Coast Guard.
Oh no, I'm a little bit taller than, a little bit bigger.
A little bit. So that's how we first met him. But because this
I'm 4'11" around.
Civilian dad bod. I get it, sir. I get it.
Big fan.
That's right. Drink another one for us, Nick. All right. So because this is the Blasters and Blades podcast, as much as we like you, sir, you do have to answer the religion question. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Oh man.
We hear that a lot. Like,
does it have to be a 2-word answer, or can I specify?
You can specify. Go on. Be as detailed as you want.
All right. So I have an affinity for track because growing up as a kid, I spent a lot of time in my room because I was in trouble all the time, and Star Trek was in syndication. So I saw a lot of Next Generation. So
okay.
that's got a really, really profound part in my heart. Star Wars, I like, but all the prequels came out whenever I was in high school, so that that was a little bit cheesy. But I always liked the concept of Star Wars more than I really liked Star Wars itself. And then when I discovered Firefly, I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So it would really be a toss-up between Firefly and Star Trek, but Star Trek had more seasons, so I think I have to go there.
Oof.
I thought he was going to go multi-theist on us, but, I mean, in the end, he picked.
No, man. It's like Highlander. They're going to be on one.
He picked his God.
He did. All right, because we are polytheistic. Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
Oh. Well, you use Game of Thrones instead of A Song of Ice and Fire, so are you talking about the shows and not the books?
I'm speaking more generically because people know it as Game of Thrones, but we word the questions in such a way that the guests can pick the books or the movies. They're dealer's choice. We tried to find ones that were in both mediums.
Man, I'm going to go with Narnia.
Okay.
Yeah, because the other two did not have a song made about them by The Lonely Island.
We also, technically, the Game of Thrones TV show deviated to have an ending, and Martin's probably going to have the same thing happen that Jordan did. He's probably going to die and then have Sanderson finish it. And yeah, I think I'll go with at least what's a finished product.
Yeah,
that's a solid answer. Although, final question: this is going to be hard for you, sir, as a Navy veteran, but we're going to ask you anyway. All right.
All right, just use small words and speak slowly.
So we are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes. We are civilized human beings here now that we have Stabby Stab to keep us in line. That's his wife, who sometimes comes on the show. But sorry, and stabs him. But, you know, he likes it, so it's cool. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Coffee, more so than tea. Both of them I like frou-frou. So it's got to be sweet and creamy.
Just like
except for the tea. You don't really want creamy tea. That's too British.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 lumps of sugar, please.
Yeah. I'm from Mississippi, so unsweet tea is blasphemous. So
forbidden.
It's forbidden.
Yeah, forbidden. But dude, I drink probably half a gallon of coffee a day.
Oh, nice.
That's good. I had to cut back because I realized that I was drinking a Big Mac with all the creamer I put in it. But I mean, it's so good.
Sounds like you drink it like I do.
Yeah, but I gotta get. You want to be airborne, you got to be thin. So I'm trying to get back in shape.
Yeah.
You have to go coffee, bro.
Well, I'm prior Navy, so it's all about buoyancy.
I got my own personal flotation device. My PFD is my body.
I'm told if you're fat, it can help slow a bullet down. So maybe you could live.
You got to get pretty fat, dog.
Well, it started as a joke because there was an article about how the gladiators in the Roman era, they would fatten them up with like oatmeal and stuff right before the fight so they could, more
like
superficial.
horses.
Yeah, just put them a little bit of extra weight to survive those cuts.
That's an interesting thing of research. I did not know that. I figured they were all scrawny dudes that were getting hacked up by stronger dudes that were owned by the emperor.
Yeah, like the just Schwarzenegger-looking guys.
Yeah.
All they eat is a whole cow a day.
Yeah, and they put all the little mountaineer slaves in there to be the cannon fodder.
Yeah.
They're just going through hacking them up, dragging them with horses and stuff.
It totally kills my image of the gladiator and of gladiators, just the guys like me just getting off the recliner like, I guess I'll go slash some people up today.
Well, that was just a 2,000 year ago version of WWF, right?
Hell yeah.
It was all scripted.
And it's Staticus off the top rope.
Oh, his brains went everywhere.
Blood and circus, man.
Not entertained.
All right, so before we dive into the book and just nerdy things, we did joke about you being a Navy veteran, but so we obviously have to ask the question, but how do you feel like your time in uniform affects the way you tell these stories?
Well, that's a pretty good question. I've not considered. I guess the military aspect of it, I envisioned the attitude that certain characters would have based on the type of demeanor people of certain ranks would have. Usually the bad boy characters I model after the douchebags I met in the military. And we could all kind of relate to that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I would say when it comes to doing stuff about spaceships in space, I model that a lot after the things I saw on a aircraft carrier for 4 combat deployments to nowhere. There's just aspects of being on a ship that I think a lot of people probably don't know about, such as the maintenance required to maintain a ship and things of that nature. So I try to, having been a maintainer myself and not an officer on a ship, I try to bring at least a couple of characters to the forefront who are doing repairs of a ship or something. I don't do that to try to explain the tech, but try to give like if you're on the captain and this XO all the time, it's easy to be like, oh, those must be the only guys on the ship, you know? So I try to bring some of the crew into it. That might be a little bit different than some other people.
I think you get a lot of in modern military science fiction on the space fleet subgenre side who watched a lot of Star Trek and they think that's real and everything was so clean and sterile. And even in space, there's going to be grunge from daily living. You're going to see people, you know, maybe not the cleanest because they're crawling through the catwalks or, you know, there's going to be dirt and such that's going to have to be maintained. It's going to have a more lived in approach. And so when you see combat and everything's still really clean in those books, I'm like, you know, it's going to smell like burnt ozone and maybe melted whatever that was if they got hit by a plasma bolt. Like, it just feels people, because they don't understand what a ship is like, everything feels too clean and static.
Yeah, that's definitely not reality. There's a lot of burnt rubber and regret.
Yeah. In the Army, too.
Yeah.
And the shoe rubber you're burning if you're in the infantry.
Everything smells like crude oil. That's what I remember from the military. Like, I did like 16 years. No matter what base you went on, it smelled like oil.
Yeah, there's a very distinct petroleum smell all over a ship. And I caught a whiff of it. I wasn't even anywhere near a ship, and it just kind of takes you back. And I've been out almost 4 years. And an interesting thing about, I used to work on F-18s, and I would come home smelling like JP5. And I did something different every tour. And one of those tours, for a short tour, I was an instructor. Didn't touch a plane, wasn't around a plane. And I came home one day, and my wife goes, "Oh, you smell like JP5." And I was like, "I haven't touched a plane in a year and a half." So all those smells and stuff get absorbed into your skin, and sometimes release. And I guess your pheromones, when you're as manly as me, you know, exudes JP5. And
So
I don't get that manly, just gunpowder and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, if the Autobots ever came, man, they're going to be trying to pick you up at a bar.
Yeah, man. You know, be like, Autobots going to roll out on me. You know.
I was waiting for Nick to do the voice. Roll out.
You guys got to shut up so I can bring it in there, man. Be like, Dave, I am Optimus Prime. Autobots transform and roll out.
Okay, so
I'm still working on it. I'm pretty close. I'm at about an 80% solution on that thing.
Keep it up, man.
You got skills going on, sir.
I got to practice walking too, so I don't lose that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You do a lot of time floating in the Navy. I mean, Border Patrol's a Navy, but it's still a Navy.
Kind of.
That's a part of Homeland Security.
That's right. I can use the Coast Guard's exchange, which is awesome.
Oh, me too.
Is that better than
the Navy exchange?
I'm sorry, JR. What'd you say?
Is the Coast Guard exchange better than like the Army, Navy, or Marine Corps exchange?
Oh no, but the shopette's pretty legit. Like, they got pre-packaged meals, like pre-made meals in there. Then you just throw in the microwave and like, all right, heat it up. You know, that you can't beat the price for a lot of that shit. Like,
okay,
get my monsters at like $2 a pop instead of like $3.65 at like a grocery store.
I remember when they were $1.
Yeah.
I might need a moment. Morning, my wallet. Anyway, inflation. All right. Yeah.
So you asked about whether or not the Coast Guard exchange is better than like the Navy exchange. I would say yes, because less of a line.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate consideration.
But there's no gas pump in San Diego sector's Coast Guard. So, but I do go to the gas pump at the Navy exchange. It's right there on Rosecrans and
Guildenstern?
No.
Missed opportunity.
No, Nimitz and Rosecrans.
So I don't know. I find I do better at the Sam's Club or the Kroger gas station than I do at the base one. So I just hit those. But this isn't the gas price hour. So we're going to go back to talking about military stuff. So do you ever
We just did. The exchange is an important part of the military.
It is.
AFI's.
That's the organization that gets paid a lot of money by the military to sell us overpriced crap with no sales tax.
Exactly. I used to get logs of Copenhagen at the exchange.
Oh, man. I used to buy up some of that.
On the cheap.
Yeah, back when I was smoking. And they had those pogs. Do you remember those during the war era? During the GWAT? Yeah. Those little pog coins that had like
overly poker chips.
Yeah. I kept a couple of them, but they wanted us to like exchange them out for like a almost like a Visa debit card on the way out. So we didn't take them out of theater, but I kept a couple just for memory's sake.
I tried. I had a cargo pocket full of them, and when I got home, my ex-wife's like, "I'm going to wash the Iraq out of these things," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then, I had a pocket full of pogs, and she washed them, and they all just kind of.
And there, a marriage ended, as in that moment that he knew.
15 years later,
he done effed up.
Yeah, right, I was holding a grudge for 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's no petty like Army petty.
Yeah.
So when you're writing these Navy stories and you're involving like what you knew about experience on both small fighter craft and naval ships in general, do you ever draw from people you knew when you served?
Oh yeah, I kill a lot of people I used to work for.
In books, in writing, Mr. FBI man.
In books.
Oh, yeah.
In Minecraft.
Yeah.
Stand down.
Okay. Do you draw on anybody that you knew that you liked as well, or just the bad examples?
No, I use it runs the gamut. A lot of times I like to adopt personality traits, or everybody's kind of got a little bit of a tick that they do without realizing that they do it. And I think it's because everybody's in a high stress environment all the time that we all get a little bit of at least a low level of traumatic stress disorder or whatever. So people do these different little things where they maybe do something with their hands, or they make these like weird noises or something. And I pick those things out, not to pick on that person and put it into the book, but if I can find some type of physical thing that they do so it distinguishes whenever you're talking about somebody and they're making that gesture or they're doing that weird thing with their head or something, you always kind of know that's the character that's coming up. I stole that idea from a panel I saw online from Jim Butcher talking about the little things that he did in the Dresden Files. I can't remember. I think the woman's name was Murphy, and he had these characteristic traits that the short blonde bobbing up to Dresden was always going to be Murphy. So I forget what you call that. It was almost like a tag for the character. I try to create that little tags for the characters. They get mentioned maybe once a page or something to kind of remind people that this person does this thing or speaks in a certain way.
Okay.
That's a good indicator.
Yeah. I can't remember what they call that. Like, I have significant memory loss when it comes to a lot of that stuff.
It
really screws up my brilliant like conversations that I'm having. It's like, yeah, and then this over here, and then I'm like,
train left the station.
Yeah, I'm smarter than I look and smarter than I sound.
That's what happens.
A lot of smart people from Mississippi.
Yeah, like one or two,
and they were all related.
Yeah,
but then again, everyone from Mississippi is related, so it works. Yeah, the head injuries and all the explosives that you're around can do a number on your memory.
Oh yeah.
So
I forgot the word "the" for like half hour. Like I didn't know. It was pretty stupid. I laugh at it now. Apparently, I've reclaimed the word "though."
I have word aphasia, so I get words mixed up, and then I'll end up describing them, and my poor mother has to go in and edit that stuff out. Like instead of saying, oh, it's the dishwasher, I'm like, that square box you put your plates in.
Yeah.
Oh man, we have to document maintenance where I work now, and I couldn't think of the word for something, and even now I don't remember what it was. But sometimes I go in there and I'll do something very similar to what you just said, JR. I'll put like the thing that does the thing, and that would be my descriptor for the thing that I worked on, and just I draw these blanks. It's so weird. It doesn't happen as much when I'm writing a book or something, but if I'm doing something at work or I'm communicating something verbally, man, some of these words just fly away before they even make it to my tongue.
Yeah. It's like, I left that thing in the big box that keeps food cold. What's that thing called? A fridge? Yeah, that's it.
I've done that actually. Oh, just the gift that keeps on giving with the Army.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I imagine you get some of the same concussive effects being around a lot of jets when the prop wash, or is it prop wash or the jet wash, whatever they call it when it's taken off?
Yeah, dude. And you're standing like 3 feet away from it.
I've seen some gnarly videos where some of the smaller people got thrown around on the flight deck when a plane was taken off. I laughed. I'm not going to lie. I laughed hilariously.
Oh, that's funny.
At those videos. A lot of times it's the little short kings and queens that are like barely tall enough to get in the military to start with, and they're out there in their little colored suits, and then suddenly the plane, the jet, whatever, taking off, and they're tumbling. Hilarious. And of course their friends, rather than help them, what are they doing? Like good military friends, they're filming and laughing their asses off.
Of course.
Dude, I got this story, man. So on an aircraft carrier, if you ever see pictures, all these guys and girls are wearing different colored jerseys. Right, and all those colors mean something different. Red is ordnance, green is maintainer, white is safety or final checker, and yellow is a color that's used for the aircraft directors. Well, these people don't put the rank on their sleeves because they, I guess, are told that they have the authority over all of the flight decks. So it doesn't matter if they're an E3 or an E9. They have equal authority over all things on the flight deck. And those people piss us off. So we were hooked. A guy that I worked for, because I was like an E4 at the time, was sitting in the seat turning the aircraft, which is where they sit there with the engines on and doing stuff for troubleshooting, and he needed some help, so he called me over and I hooked up a comm cord to the aircraft so we could communicate with one another while all these aircraft were turning. And there, at the time, Tomcats and E2s were the only and Prowlers were the aircraft that needed something called a huffer to start. It's basically, it shoots air into the motor to get it to air start. And Hornets don't need that, but on the back of the tractors, they would have these huffers built on the back of it. They'd hook the hose up. They'd start whatever engine needed to be started, and then they would disconnect the hose, turn the huffer off, and drive the tractor away. Well, there was this female yellow shirt that was always extra cranky with all of us maintainers and would try to, demonstrate her authority. And she was kind of a roly-poly looking thing, if you can imagine that. And she was walking past, and this guy was driving a tow tractor past with the huffer still on, and it's shooting out enough air to start an aircraft engine. So, of course, she's walking down the flight deck, and this thing drives past her, and her legs go up over her head, and she starts rolling on the flight deck. And all I hear is my LPO laughing. He goes, "Oh, look at that roly-poly going down the flight deck. Get you what you deserve." He's all like cussing, ranting, and raving. I turn around, I see her. She's like tumbling down the flight deck. And it's non-skid, so it hurts. But at the time, couldn't stand the chick, so it was like, oh, ha, ha, ha.
Oh, absolutely. You have been smited.
And the great thing about it was she went down because of friendly fire, because it was her own rate that was driving the tractor that blew her over. So.
That's funny.
Yeah. There's a lot more graphic stuff that happens out there, but that's one of the funny ones.
And as bad as that sounds, let a Marine show up on deck or let us Army or whatever mess with her as much as they hated her, and it would have been game on, because that's just the way it rolls.
Oh, yeah, man. Keep your grubby green hands away from our people.
Exactly. It's one of those things where, like, you can fight with your brother, but nobody else can, kind of thing. Yeah. Like, I'm the only one allowed to punch him in the face. It's kind of the mentality.
Yeah, that's our thing, man.
like I used to give the Cav Scouts no end of grief, and I've heard a sad story, Nick, that they're getting rid of them. Who are we going to mock now? I guess what's left, the MPs.
They're still MPs.
Yeah, but I would always give him crap, and then we were on a joint base with the Calf Scout I was messing with at the time. Like, we were just harassing him hysterically. I mean, he was giving it back, and the Marine showed up and tried to join the party, mocking the Calf Scout. Like, who the F does he think he is? And then we just turned on the Marine, and we had a nice little tussle. In the,
who are you talking to, Pogue?
Pretty much. Ironically, he was a Marine Air Wing, I think. When he fixed the helicopters for the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
So he's not even combat arms. I'm like, who are you talking to?
But Marines don't like aviation Marines. They're not the same.
Yeah, they're different.
I don't know much about their culture. I just know, like, somebody that wasn't part of the Green Weenie was trying to mess with ours. I'm like, no, you don't get to do that. That's my job.
My partner at work was aviation in the Corps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
they eat a different crayon.
Yeah, because the line idiots didn't really like us, so he was working for HMX 1, so he was working on Marine 1, the helicopter. So you'd get like these ground pounding Marines coming around. He was telling me stories about it because they'll get assigned to the air wing, and then they try to do that same infantry grunt shit, like if they were at Pendleton or Lejeune, and they're like, whoa, we don't do that shit here, man.
like slow your roll.
It's like slow your roll, dude. We wear coveralls, you know.
I remember I did 2 deployments where we had F-18 squadrons that were Marine squadrons, and their whole setup is different than ours. They have E6s doing what E7s in the Navy do, and they collapse some of their work centers. So I was an aviation electrician, so my rate was AE. But we have a similar rate, which is AT, which is an avionics technician. And we do different jobs, but they're both electrical. And we also have power plants, which is a machinist mate, aviation machinist mate that works on the engines. And we have airframes, which does the structural and hydraulics and stuff. But the way the Marines collapse everything down because their manning is so low is what we called the line shack was the mech shop and the line shack combined. So it was power plants, line shack, and they combined it to power line. And one of the parts that they had to change on the aircraft was a generator. And these things are like 85 pounds. So they send one guy to go get this generator, and he's running with an 85-pound generator covered in oil on his shoulder. And he like trips over something, and you see this $100,000 piece of equipment exit his shoulder and start tumbling down the flight deck. And usually when you drop one of those, it's bad right off the bat. He, instead of taking it back to his work center, he grabs it, keeps running towards the jet with it. Like they're about to install this thing that's all dented in and broken. So yeah, they're a different breed for sure.
That's interesting. My experience, I dealt with them some because we would out to Condom, we would resupply the air wing there for the Marines. They were unique individuals.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've talked about how your time in service affects the way you tell stories and the kind of characters you write in those stories. But do you feel like it affects the way you engage with content as a consumer? So you read the books, the comics, the graphic novels, watch the shows. Like, has that changed since you joined the Navy?
Yes. Especially for things that are more in the community that I was in. Anything dealing with aviation, you can kind of see the BS if they just kind of made it up. And it's just we all write, you know. We all know that sometimes we'll put some asterisks there and say we need to do some research to figure out how to explain this so it don't sound stupid. But sometimes they put stuff out there that they do zero research and they're willing to show everybody how stupid they are. But yeah, things like Top Gun and Maverick and stuff, like there's little things in there like that would not happen. That would not happen. But it's entertaining.
Beach volleyball, man. They got beach volleyball. They had beach volleyball.
Yeah, I mean, that's all the type of volleyball you can do is grease each other up and go out there. That's in San Diego too, right? So
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Go by Iceman's little Admiral's Villa there at Ballast Point. I see it every day.
Yeah.
And North Island.
Yeah, I was at school there, 2014. 6 weeks of wasted time on the government dime.
Wasted time on the government dime. That sounds like it could be a band name or a book title.
Yeah.
Or both. Or both, yeah.
Or both, yeah. Yeah, I notice more of the culture because, like, if you're talking sci-fi or fantasy, like, you make allowances because tech is different. You throw magic in, that makes it different. But some of the culture is pretty universal. I mean, even in Roman times, they were drawing phallic objects on the walls of the crappers. You know what I mean? Like, some things, as much as they change, they stay the same.
Yeah,
so
back then they were like, that's a clean wall. It'd be a shame if someone chiseled a dick in there.
Somebody 2,000 years from now is going to know just how big I really was.
Basilicus was here. And he drew a dick.
For a good time, call, and then insert random call sign, or in this case,
it's just Roman numbers.
For a good time, call I-I-V.
VVV. I, 2 eyes, 3 eyes.
I'm picturing. Have you seen Men in Tights? Where at the end he's like, call a locksmith, and then everyone's echoing it down the line.
Call a locksmith. Call a locksmith.
I'm picturing the Roman like, call Bob down the line. Or Rex, I guess. I don't know. Roman's got weird names. But yeah, so I
Loxidicus.
I look more for like the culture, I think, and then like internal consistency. Like the thing that bugged me the most about Star Trek, for instance, was all of the top ranked people at one time went off the ship on these away parties. Like I get why you quit, but like, I mean, it wouldn't take much to take the command structure off that ship.
Yeah, they left an ensign in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to go do this very dangerous thing and only take one red shirt with us.
The rest of the command staff with me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I get why they do it, but it's one of those things where, so you look at those kinds of things, and you could definitely tell people who knew what they were doing and who watched too many TV shows.
Oh, yeah. TV shows make you dumb.
Yeah, the ones that try to do the military as a little too gung-ho, yell at everyone, parade rest all the time. I mean, that happens some, but most of the time you're just chilling, trying to get the job done. Like that parade
you're trying to either get the job done or get out of doing the working party.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. At one point in time, the Army manual, the basic soldier task manual, had in there a good soldier will get sleep when and where they can because you never know when you'll be able to do it again. Something to that effect. Do you remember that, Nick?
Yeah.
And too many specialists said, this is my get out of jail Jesus card. And when they disappeared, they'd pull out that dog-eared page. It's the only page they read. Like, I didn't know I'd be able to sleep again. So since you didn't give me a task 5 seconds after I sat down, I took a nap.
Yeah, that's pretty legit, man.
Yeah, they changed that manual real quick after that. I'm sure some sergeant major called up somebody in printing and is like, take that line out.
Yeah.
Did you ever?
Nobody was allowed to buy a copy of it at the exchange because whoever was in charge was like, no, we're not giving out more issues of this for people to use as excuses.
Nick, did you ever use that one?
I would have, because usually I would test the limits of like grooming regulations, like sideburns and shit.
Okay, the mutton chops. Rock on.
I did. So I had many aggressive discussions with sergeants major.
Sergeant Major I don't know.
And then I became part of the officer corps, and I didn't have to argue shit. I just said, shut your mouth. You stand at attention when you talk to me. All right, we're done here. Dismissed.
The favorite scene about mustaches comes out of that movie Generation Kill, where that Sergeant Major is, your mustache hairs. I wonder if he was really like in real life, or if that was embellished for the book.
It was probably embellished for entertainment purposes, but yeah, like having 670-1 on me, like mostly that part, like I had printed it out and I just carried it in my cargo pocket.
I remember
your sideburns are out of rig, and I'm like, oh, is it now? Sorry, maybe.
I was one of those kinds of
me
too. We actually had a sergeant major from a Puerto Rican National Guard unit come up to us when we were in BIOP in 05. So that's Baghdad International Airport. Back when the green zone was not a friendly place to be. And we were between missions, and he was coming out like, why don't you have the soldier creed memorized and your uniform perfectly pressed? I'm like, did you not notice there's a war going on out there, Sergeant Major? Because he was going after.
How come your sleeves are cuffed? How come your boots are unbloused? I'm like, because I don't have access to a starched uniform place like you, jackass.
I took a huge risk, and I looked at the specialists in the PFC that were with me, and I'm like, you get to our truck. I want the 50 mounted, ready to go. Headspace and time, you better be good. And then I looked at the sergeant major after they were out of sight, and I politely, okay, probably not so politely, it's a war zone, you could get away with a lot, reminded him that if they had time to memorize all that BS Garrison stuff, they weren't cleaning their rifles enough. But you could get away with a lot because that was right after the Jessica Lynch convoy where none of their weapons fired because they didn't clean them.
Yeah. There were some of them were rusted internally.
Yeah, and their dust covers were
all that stuff.
Yeah, they didn't keep their dust cover closed, so it was gritty barrels and stovepipe and rounds and stuff. So if they had pushed it, my chain of command would have stuck up for me, but I was definitely have no Fs to give that day. The trick is when they're baffled by your BS, you walk away before they can recover. So this is for all you young PFCs listening that want to or in or thinking about going. If you're going to try the Handley Garber approach to military army stuff, you got to walk away before they recover from the bafflement. You got to get out of Dodge.
I told one, I was like, "What are you going to do, Sergeant Major? We're already in a war zone. You're going to cancel my birthday and Christmas? Like, you got nothing on me, bud." Mine
was always, "What are you going to do? Bend my dog tags and send me to Iraq?" Yeah.
I'm already here, and they're already bent. Well, because I didn't wear mine around my neck, I'd loop it around my belt loop, and I keep it in my back pocket.
I had one on my boot, and I did one on the belt loop too.
Yeah.
So the other fun one was if you knew you were wrong, and it was dusk or dawn or anywhere in the night, when you did your salute, you would shout the motto of whatever battalion that you didn't like and keep on trucking. So they were looking in the wrong direction. I mean, like, I don't know if the Navy has an equivalent, but I imagine there's got to be something.
Oh, yeah, dude. If you don't have any distinguishing marks on yourself and they say, "Who do you work for?" Yeah, you definitely tell them somebody else.
Like,
I do that in my current job.
I work for Air Department.
Who are you? I'm like, well, then this is the name you're looking for, and it's not my name.
And you never said that was your name. But anyway, we got far afield telling funny Army stories and Navy stories, but that's part of the joy of having other vets on. But we did bring him here to talk about his book. So before I do that, we're going to go ahead and knock this commercial out. And I'm sponsoring the show today, so check out the Sleeping Legion if you haven't heard it.
They were called the Human Marine Corps, but their cause was never humanity's, until the sleeper awoke. A century ago, all but 2 members of Lance Scipio's unit were executed for bringing dishonor to his regiment. Now he wakes into a strange new time and is tasked with whipping into shape the worst squad of misfits in the entire Human Marine Corps. The price of failure? Death. This completed series is set in the worlds of the hit Human Legion series by Tim C. Taylor, now released with a special novelette titled No Marine Left Behind, Freedom Can Be Won. So dive into this debut novel by author J.R. Handley as he takes you on an action-filled sequence of military science fiction glory.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. So before we get started, can you give us, besides the series, the Confederation Saga, which you wrote as Dave Alexander, you've written some stuff as Drew. So what else have you written? Can you give us a little bit of a Reader's Digest version?
Mostly military sci-fi and space opera. I've written a lot of different stuff. Trying to think. I got the Elorian Wars, which is kind of intergalactic war taking place. And a lot of worlds are being destroyed. So these group of ragtag people from different places come together, and they're just trying to survive, but they find themselves getting involved in a resistance force kind of by accident. So they're not raising their hand for the resistance. They're just trying to survive. But now it ends up they become pivotal in trying to take out the evil empire. I've got probably one of the more recent things I published on my own is a book called Damaged Incorporated. And I wrote it about significantly disabled veterans who get a second chance to return to combat. And we're talking people that had like limbs blown off and stuff like that.
RoboCop.
Losing their sight and their hearing and stuff. And through use of cybernetics, they're able to return. But the return to service comes at a price. And they find out that the person who was the benefactor wasn't a very good dude. So they end up seeking revenge. That's called Damaged Incorporated. It's a standalone book. I left it open in case I decided I wanted to return to that world, but it had a really strong human trafficking element, and with all the stuff that was going on with Epstein Island and all that stuff, it kind of felt a little too on the nose. So I decided not to go back to it until I can kind of distance myself from it a little bit.
So you were coming back to the writing. You had to take about a year off and do the whole day job thing, paying bills, earning insurance, making sure your wife had enough shoes. Ladies like shoes, I'm told.
Yeah.
But you're back at it with the Confederation saga. So can you tell us where, and I'm going to throw the cover up because Nick likes looking at pretty pictures. Can you tell us where the premise for this series came from?
Yeah, it came from an episode of Dark Matter where they, a couple of characters were going from one station to another, and the quickest way to get there was to just clone a replica of themselves. And I thought that would be really cool if you could be in more than one place at a time and you had a bunch of clones running around. So I took that idea and I said, well, what if there was a mercenary force of these clones, but there were stipulations that there could only be one clone alive at a time. And then I said, well, what if there's a world power that is excluded from the Confederation that decides to use this technology, abuse the technology, and try to usurp the higher up leaders of the Confederation. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And there's several different races or species involved in it, and some of it's got a little bit of space fantasy type elements to it as the books progress, but mostly it's about if you didn't have to worry about your disposable soldiers dying because you could just clone more, and you could make a certain demographic of species look like the bad guys as a distraction, then how could you use that to further your cause? And that's kind of what led to the creation of this series.
Okay.
The human element of it is, obviously it's portrayed through human eyes, but there's so many different species involved. You see how evil humanity can be. You see how compassionate humanity can be, and you see that through different versions of the same person.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of the premise of it, though, is straight up. There's a confederation of planets, essentially, instead of the Federation of Planets. There's my Star Trek reference. And then, you got the evil empire of, the evil Axis empires coming against the Confederation, trying to dominate over it and take it over. But the only way to do that is to kill the toy soldiers that are used by the higher up leaders of the Confederation. So in some ways humanity is the hero, in other ways humanity is the slave of our betters. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Definitely. So we've got the cover up, and before Nick dives in, because he likes the pretty pictures, what is the age range of this story?
What was that?
What is the age range of this story? Because obviously we have some families that listen to the show together. So if it sounds something neat that little like teenage boys might like, we try to tell the parents, hey, this is what the story's rated, kind of thing, where possible.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I wrote it clean, so there's no profanity. There is violence, but it's not gratuitous violence. It is made to be impactful. There's a torture scene. There's more than one actually, but it's not. It's not. What do they call it? Gore porn or whatever. It's not that. It's just to show the inhumanity of a character, and then another aspect of it is to show the humanity of a character. So there's a little bit of a dichotomy there. But I mean, there's violence and war. You can't really shake that. But there's no vulgarity. There's no sexualization, anything like that. So if like a 14-year-old kid wanted to read it, or an 84-year-old person wanted to read it, and they're prudish, like there shouldn't be anything in it that they would find offensive.
Yeah. So it sounds like if it was a movie, it'd be like PG-13.
Yeah. Actually, less than PG-13 because it doesn't even have the F word in it. So,
you get 2 of those in a PG-13 movie.
So I've heard.
Yeah, you get 2 of those.
That is good to know. All right, so it's a family-friendly story. Is there an audiobook out? I'm assuming so because it's Athon, and they tend to do that.
Audiobook?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all 3 of the audiobooks are out.
Okay.
It's got paperbacks and the ebooks.
Okay, now is it wide or an Amazon exclusive?
Amazon exclusive.
Okay. So, Nick, are you ready to dive into this glorious, sexy cover?
I am, man.
All the spaceship ass.
Okay, so the ship that's being fired upon is center frame, which usually I talk shit about center framed images, but it's above the eye line, so to speak, so it does add some tension to it. I like these crafts. I like these ships. Are these like one-man fighters or like small crew fighters?
They look to be.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's cool. Like it's well done. It's a polished piece of art. I do like the effects in there, with the thrusters going off and all that, and there's a planet that he's going to. So the bigger ship is obviously on the run for something. So I think it's well done. Do you know who did it?
Rebecca Haskell.
Rebecca Haskell.
Oh, okay, Haskell. Okay, yeah, we're gonna have her on for the AI episode we're doing this season. That's Jeffrey Haskell's wife.
Yeah,
I thought I recognized her work. Yeah, that's what I was about to say too. I was like, oh, that looks like Haskell's stuff.
So you said it appears to be a one-man fighter. So does your story have fighter craft, or is this just an artistic rendering of an idea of, or a scene from the book, or?
So she had no idea about what the book I was writing was about, and I had no idea what art was going to be chosen. I get options. Athon's like, hey, check out all these things. And Steve sent me like 50 pictures. He goes, pick one. And I'm like, oh, dude, there's like 50 pictures here, and they're all awesome. And
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, that's a really good problem to have. So, but I was trying to find something that would at least somewhat replicate a scene from the book. And there is a scene from the book where the main character, or the 2 main characters, are trying to return to Mars or the Sol system in order to evade this evil empire that's trying to take over. And in the process of doing so, they're being pursued by both sides. They're being pursued by Confederate ships, and they're also being pursued by Bastion ships. And I guess this scene from on this cover would closely replicate whenever they jump into a new system and they're being pursued.
Well, if I saw it in a bookstore, I'd definitely check it out. It's a pretty interesting piece of artwork there. It's eye-catching. It's like, oh, if there's a scene like that in the book, I'm probably going to read this because this looks cool.
Yeah, there's a very similar scene, yeah. And then I'm trying to bring up the pictures of the other books. Very similar things where there's space battles going on. And space battles do exist in the series. Lots of ships get exploded. Lots of people get unalived.
Deleted. Removed from the census.
Yeah. Population density goes down a little bit.
Yep.
Number of days since combat fatality, 0. So what would be, if you had to give us like a Reader's Digest, we do that. If you had to give us an elevator pitch that was just like pithy and short to sell this to someone listening, and now, what would it be, do you think?
mercenary clones threaten the peace of the Confederation. I guess I've had to go down to one sentence.
Definitely pithy. You get a digital cookie from us.
That
The Blasters and Blades foo. What is it? Blasters and Blades foo? Is that what we do?
Pithy foo, rocket foo. I mean, we've got a lot of foos going on here since I'm ripping off Joe Bob.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're sponsoring and working with Hillbilly over at Three Ravens, so I think Joe Bob is a good addition to the shenanigans. So, I mean, I'm all about it. So, what can you tell us about your main characters? I mean, obviously they're clones. You covered that, but
yeah. Well, the first character you're introduced to is a guy named Garrett Cushing, and that is not a real name. He's a clone, and he is the son of a director of the dang dude, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, his stepdad was high up and was a director for the Confederation, and his stepfather was an abusive man who used him to control the mother and used the mother to control the son. And the mother was poisoned, and even the clones that are replicated of her still have the same decaying sense of what the disease does. So every time she gets replicated, she's at the beginning stages of dying again.
Oh, that's horrible.
And he uses that to push the son into doing his bidding, which is basically go and make humanity look depraved and go and try to disrupt the peace so that I can prove that humans and a couple of other species are lesser than species and do not deserve to be part of the Confederation. And the only reason they were included was for politics. And if they could disrupt that and remove humanity and the Lytar and the Veshnians from inclusion in the Confederation, then they are able to basically restore military power back to the Confederation, and basically the bad guys win. But that character has a real name, and that real name is Stephen Chansey. And the Garrett Cushing character is him taking his biological father's name and using that and basically marring that name. So the real Stephen Chansey isn't a mercenary at all. He's a freedom fighter for one of the lesser than nations and is trying to basically save lives. So you have two versions of the same person, but one of them is manipulated by someone and the other person realized what was happening and ran away from that so that they wouldn't be turned into an evil person by that influence. So that's the main character that follows through in all three books. And there's the human ambassador, and the ambassador corps is essentially people who are sent to go and martyr themselves in order to do the will of the Confederation. So if you can imagine somebody goes over as a diplomat and they say, we want you to do this. And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. And then they shoot that person in the head. Well, they're just disposable and they can be regenerated. And then every time they get cloned, they have their the number of the clone etched into their skin. It's like a metallic etching. So you have some of these people that have hundreds of clones that have been made on them. That's how many times they've died.
Jesus.
Yeah, so that's kind of it. If the series continued, I had an idea for what I would do to try to end the cloning process and destroy the database where all the uploaded memory banks and everything of all the people who get uploaded into the database, all that would get wiped out. So then once you die, you're dead. But we'll see if any more books become available.
Okay. All right. So obviously it's a trilogy. Does the arc end satisfactory if Aethon opts not to do more books in it? Does it give them a wrap up, even if it could continue as well?
Yeah, I saved some people. so there's like a little bit of a conclusion there, and then there's an open-endedness that allows for more stuff to be written, but it doesn't have to conclude. It doesn't have to continue to be concluded. Kind of be like, oh, I wonder what happens, but it's not like I have to know what happens.
So they're like contained stories.
Yeah, they're
open-ended, so you can make more.
Yeah, the first book kind of ends, with a mission to continue, and somebody's like, oh, that's kind of cool, but whatever. They still get a satisfying ending even with the first book.
Nice.
Okay, that's good.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
So, were there obviously there are aliens? So, how did you go about creating those aliens that you put in the story? Did you was there a process for you?
Yes, I'm trying to think. Man, I just moved, so all my stuff is not
readily accessible.
Yeah, access is thin. There's an RPG game that's sci-fi. It's like a sci-fi version of Pathfinder. I can't think of the name. Starfinder or something like that. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's called Starfinder.
Not with me, but
I found out about this game. I've never played it, but I was looking at some of the characters and stuff. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So there's like a reptilian species, and I was like, oh, let me use that as a model for one of the races. And then I think it was Mass Effect had an art book that I was looking at.
Yeah.
And it might have been something else. I started writing the first book in like 2017, so it's been so long that I can't remember where I got the idea for everything. It just all the ideas and stuff just got written down. So the birth of the book, I remember coming up with some of the stuff, and some of the other stuff it's like I have no idea where it came from due to memory lapse. But a lot of the aliens were modeled off of like sci-fi games and stuff like that. Of like, oh, I want to take this from that, and I'll take this from that. And
so an homage to everything you loved.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, okay. That's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's no law against it.
Yeah, the TV show The Orville?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the white scaly-skinned kind of semi-reptilian looking race.
Okay, it's been a while since I've seen it because I didn't watch it after season 1 because they went behind a paywall.
Like some of that stuff was kind of an influence. I didn't really steal from it, but you can be inspired by something and not have to steal.
Totally.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if you continue the story, obviously if people listen, they buy the books and they leave reviews, because you do that, people, you leave reviews and they really like it and they write Aethon and say, hey, we want more. Do you have a plan on what might come next, or would you tell a side story in the same world but maybe a different series?
Oh yeah, there's definitely something that would happen next. That was kind of what I was hoping for. People would be like, oh man, we want more. And then I'd be like, I've already got the idea. I've already got like a partial outline written. And it does divulge a little bit, but it's definitely not a side quest. You just change settings, and the war effort actually gets bigger in the process. So I could probably pump out 2 more books without having to make up too much more story. That's about how much leeway that I gave myself to continue. But I did. You don't want to develop an idea for 12 books and then you only write the 3.
Yeah,
that's a lot of effort. But yeah, I kind of know where it would go. I could definitely jump into book 4 like tomorrow if I had to. I'm just waiting on the call.
So do you think well, before I ask that, Nick, did you have any questions? Because I know I keep blabbing at the mouth.
No, man, I'm the comic book dude. You're more the literary guy. So I let you ask all the questions about process and things like that, because my process is, the comic book artist is completely different. But no, it seems like you got a good, plan for what your series is gonna do and what it wants to do. And it sounds like you have some plans for after the 3 books, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, it seems like to me, it's like I hope it goes all the way to 12 books. To be honest with you, because it sounds like you have a pretty immersive world where you could really get in there and write a lot of stories from it.
There's a lot of options, especially when you can clone people.
Yeah, cloning is it's a good MacGuffin.
Yeah, are you familiar with who did it? It wasn't Marco Cluse. Who did the Mark Wayne McGinnis did the Undying Mercenary series?
No, that's not familiar.
He's got a cloning process too. Only it's not. They like rebirth them if they die from a memory scan. So that way you keep fighting and keep being reborn. Obviously, there are things that can happen where you don't get reprocessed, but that it's an interesting story along those lines too, where you can't have more than one of you out at once, and it's definitely a lot of fun. You should check it out if you haven't read it, but it's also giving me vibes of that. But if you haven't read it,
a little bit of Altered Carbon too, a little bit of Altered.
Yeah, Altered Carbon was something that was an early influence as well. When I was thinking about I mentioned the thing about dark matter, and I was like, there's got to be some type of way where people don't get into a coffin-looking thing and then they get cloned somewhere else. It's got to be something where a database creates them. So I was thinking about Altered Carbon and them having that thing in the back of their neck. I was like, well, maybe these guys have ports to plug in, So it's got like a very slight cyberpunk element with the ports.
And I think that adds something to it too. So say the clone gets whacked, do they have something like an implant that sends like the current memories
they'd have to
a central link? Yeah,
they would have to plug in. So and it gets addressed. Like half of that Garrett guy's life he doesn't remember because the clone died before he was able to upload. But he
can't do that post-mortem.
Right. Yeah, no, they have to be alive. But they get plugged into a certain point, and there's whenever he gets regenerated, he can get regenerated as a 40-year-old man or as a 20-year-old man. So there's different versions of him walking around. And another aspect to it is sometimes people are wearing bodies that aren't really who they are. So some of the technology that the bad guys use allow them to create they're called composites. They're not called clones, but they create composites of whatever species, but it'll actually be the mind and the memories of them. So that's another way that they're trying to infiltrate the system.
That's pretty cool. It's like almost there's some like Doctor Who kind of in there, even though there's never been an alien doctor, which I would love to see one day if they make good Doctor Who stories. But, no, that's interesting, man. It can. So it's got components of different sci-fi franchises as far as like cloning and living in different bodies. You throw in, well, he could also be a different species. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I never even thought about that. So that's cool.
It could be a mess. Keeping track of who's who and who's wearing what.
Right. It's like, what skin did you buy? Did you get the DLC? I ain't seen that skin before.
So, would you live in this world if you could? I mean,
no.
There's not enough plot armor in the world, huh?
No, man. Earth is like everybody's on basic, and there's the upper world and the lower world, and if you're not upper world, you don't want to be part of it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just not a good place. I mean, and yet, even in the solar system, there's Earth and Mars and the Moon, Earth's moon, that are used as places for people to live, and like none of them are really great. There's great aspects of them, but just like anywhere you would go that's highly developed, the crime goes up, and then sometimes due to politics, some aspects of crime are allowed to linger because it's beneficial to the people that are in charge. So Yeah, definitely not a place I'd want to be.
Okay. All right. Was there anything about the Confederation saga, let me throw that cover up one more time, that we didn't ask you that you want to tell us?
No, I feel like I talked a lot about it. I don't really want to give too much of it away.
No, and,
Yeah,
and
no spoilers.
certain books are harder to do interviews about because there's only so much that you can say without spoiling the novel. And obviously, like, we want people to buy the books and read the books and review the books, and so spoilers are a bad thing.
Right. I will say that sometimes it's kind of hard to know why the bad guys are doing the bad guy things, and really what it comes down to is the way galactic travel is done in this book series is through a resource called hydostotic crystals. I can't even say it. And these are implemented as a device that allow ships to jump from one sector of space to another. And so it's kind of like Stargates, but it's the power source for these Stargates. And if you control the lanes of travel, then you have all the power. You control the resources, you have all the power. So that's their justification isn't just be the bad guys and disrupt the Confederation. It's they were expelled from the Confederation by the inclusion of what they deemed to be lesser species. And humans, Lytar, and Vestians were essentially slave races as viewed by what we would consider the bad guys. So, yeah, you don't really want them in charge, but as they see it, where they were excluded from the Confederation because a other higher level race decided that these would be good species to have around to do all the heavy lifting. So if you think about it, if they kind of got what they wanted and we were taken out of the Confederation, we wouldn't be enslaved to the Afshai, which is the highest level species within the Confederation. So there's almost like a little bit of a nobleness to them trying to get us kicked out, but at the same time, they're bad guys, so you don't really want them to win. A little bit of dichotomy there.
I like it when the good and the bad is a little less clear cut. I mean, there's room for the black and white, but there's fun playing in the gray as well.
Yeah, it's like 50 Shades of Gray, just no pleasure room.
Okay, and on that note, we're going to move on from the book. So you've been writing for a while. Obviously, you had to take a break, do the job thing, and you're back at writing again. So if the magic phone picked up today and someone said, pick your favorite franchise and you could write a story in that world, who are you picking?
Oh, man. You know what I've always, before I wanted to write books, I wanted to be a comic book artist. And my drawing skills, not so great. But I've always wanted to do something with X-Men, but not the modern X-Men. I'd want to go back to like mid-90s, like 93, 94, 95.
The Golden Blue Team era?
Yeah, Golden Blue Team, X-Men, and do something with that. Either write a comic series or write a novelization, something like that. I think that would probably be the thing that I would try to jump towards.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That's a fun era to play in, too.
Yeah.
Hey, what about you, Nick? Who are you picking?
Ooh, man. Well, he already took the good one.
You can pick it too.
No, I would do X-Men, but I would like to do X-Men. But more than likely, I'd probably fall into like the Defenders. You know, I'd love to write Doctor Strange and, well, a team where you have the original Human Torch, the Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Namor. I think that would be fun as hell to write and draw.
Okay. I'm definitely going to pick Stargate. It's my one true love. If they let me write official, like the tale of an SG team, like I'm down. Definitely have to go places like they haven't gone yet. I could totally give them the answers to finish the Stargate Universe storyline, because they're like, we canceled the show. Check out the graphic novel where we give you an ending. And then the graphic novel is like, psych, you're a sucker. No ending for you.
You're going to be like a version of Quantum Leap where you just jump through that universe, plugging plot holes.
yeah, something like that.
Till one day he plugs the last pothole or plot hole and he can finally journey home.
Yeah, so I would definitely give an ending. I could give an ending, although, a 12-year-old with a crown could probably do a better job than the writers
Quantum
did.
Stargate. I'd watch that show.
I could do the Stargate Universe franchise. I liked Atlantis. There was a lot of cool stuff to play with. So that would have been fun, a series in that world, and just a regular SG team would be kind of cool. But I like the Goa'uld era when they got to the Orion, Ori, however they say that. That got kind of just dumb. Like, I mean, they kind of jumped the shark for a little bit. Then the movies that they made in that period were good. But I would definitely like to play with the early Stargate team, like one of the first or second, like, backup teams. Like the Stargate Reserves maybe gets called up because there's an emergency.
You love doing reserve stories.
Because I like the everyman. I'm not going to lie. Like, I like the idea.
I figured you would have gone with, like, the Enterprise version of Trek and just wrote specifically about the Makos. I figured that was where you were going to go.
No, I'm not a huge Trek fan because I just don't believe that Gene Roddenberry understood true human nature.
All right, fine. I'll write the Mako series.
I mean, I could probably be convinced, but I mean, Stargate is my one true love.
That's your jammy jam.
That is. I wouldn't mind writing about, like, if we're going to do Star Wars, the Rogue Squadron.
Oh, I'd write the hell out of that.
That X-Wings, like, although I want to give, like, the Porkins story for reasons.
Like, obviously, it's a prequel. Yeah, he didn't live long.
No, but like maybe an alternate reality, or I know Porkins Jr. He popped a baby out before he left.
There you go. What pork chop?
Yeah, there you go. What is
That's call sign? Pork chop.
You killed my father. Prepare to die, or something.
Yeah,
that would be fun. Although I do
Baron action.
Yeah, I do like I don't know. I had a soft spot for the Empire. Like, so the average clone trooper.
They had cookies and cool uniforms.
Cool uniforms. Although that little butt pack, nobody could ever tell me what that was supposed to be for.
On the Stormtrooper?
Yeah.
The tube on the back?
Yeah.
Shit. I'll get back to you on that. I know the answer.
So, like, I wouldn't mind telling, like, Karen Travis did the Clone Commandos, but like I said, I like doing the reserve angle because it gives you the average, like, folk story. I really like telling the everyman goes to war because even though I was federalized, so I spent my time on active duty, I spend my time on active duty in war zones working with weekend warriors who were told, you're only going to get, mobilized after the ladies auxiliary, but before the Boy Scouts. Like, that was what we were promised in the late 90s when we enlisted.
Oh, that was a lie.
Yeah, when I enlisted in 98, CNN did a special that world peace might finally be attainable. Jokes on them. So, like, I don't know. There's something about that, realizing that, like, this was just supposed to be, like, a fun time, whatever, and holy crap, shit just got real. Like, there's just something compelling about that wake-up call. You could do it with regular Army stuff if you got draftees. You could do a draftee story, too. Because it's the same oh shit experience, right?
Yeah, watching Sam get put into the shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's an interesting tale.
Yeah, I think that could be fun, and I also think that there's the Star Wars set up the series with the Stormtroopers. Like, oh my god, that shock grouping is so tight. Only a Stormtrooper could do that, and then they spent the whole rest of the franchise where nobody could hit crap. So I don't feel like the movies did justice to the concept of a Stormtrooper, and you can't convince me that they terrorized a galaxy and brought the world to its knees in submission while shooting that badly.
Well, you got to remember the original Stormtroopers were the clone troopers, and then when they transitioned to the Empire, they started moving into being called Stormtroopers. So they did have accurate fire, and that's what Obi-Wan's referring to because he's been hiding in the desert for like 18 years. It's before the conscripts.
Yeah, but even conscripts get training. Like, I mean, Vietnam had conscripts and they still had marksmen.
Yeah. You know, and if I don't know if you ever put on a stormtrooper helmet, you can't see shit in that thing.
In theory, don't they have like some sort of HUD system in them?
I don't know where they would put it. I got one hanging on the wall. Every time I like, oh, how could they be so bad at there it is. Yeah, you can't see shit.
I don't know.
Your nose is getting pressed into your face. It's an uncomfortable piece of headgear.
I've seen the movies, but they don't do, except for when Finn took his off. They don't with the New Republic. Was it not the New Republic? The New Order.
Oh,
you don't really see much. Order. The First Order. There we go. You don't see much of what's inside the helmet, so they don't really know. But like, presumably, they've got to compensate for that. I know I've got a big head, so when I had a production company that normally makes Star Wars armor make one from the reservist that I wrote. He did the bucket. I can't put it on my head. One size fits all does not fit me.
No,
so I've never been able to put the helmet on to get a vibe of what's going on. But I don't know. There's just a lot of room in telling the average soldier story, right? And in a dream world, I'd like to find a story where I could recreate the Winter Truce. So was it 1915, 1916?
Mm-hmm.
I have to Google it. But the First World War, where they stopped the war to play soccer and stuff,
yeah,
and went back to kill, like that could be a compelling story in a sci-fi setting. I think.
And they set up a pretty good spread food-wise too.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Christmas. Yeah,
and the cool thing is they did all this while nobody spoke each other's language, yeah, it's kind of cool. But there's lots of ideas, I think. But what about you? I went on with more than one example, so. Now that you have time to think, Dave, otherwise known as Drew, sometimes masquerading as Chuck, but we don't judge Mr. Tingle.
Chuck?
I was, while you were talking, I was thinking about going further back into something that was really, really cool in the 80s and 90s, but now wouldn't be as cool of a premise because of how technology has changed. Highlander.
Oh,
they're remaking the movie.
Yeah,
huge plot holes in that story. Like, oh, he's the last one. The quickening has happened. Suddenly, oh, this person was in the ocean the whole time. Like, but then he's still around, so the quickening shouldn't have been able to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the show didn't make sense either.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool to watch the guy fight with the katana, but like, where's he hiding it? Please explain.
Yeah, the trench coats aren't that long.
I feel like post-Columbine, the trench coats would get you a lot more strange looks these days than they would have probably.
Oh, yeah. You see a dude, it's like August, you're wearing a trench coat. I'm like,
security.
Maybe you should go with the cane.
That guy's definitely in a flash mob.
Yeah.
But he's going to be like wearing like a Poison Ivy bikini type thing when he takes that trench coat off and start dancing.
Yeah.
He's probably going to
Highlander, though. I mean, the cutback scenes to the various historic eras, like the history nerd in me was like, squee.
Yeah, that franchise went off the rail with the second one where it was like, oh, we're aliens. And I'm like, no.
So take the Highlander concept and then put it like ancient Egypt.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
That's sweet. I will say
that's right up your alley, JR.
Yeah, I will say that the Highlander did make me want to buy a barge boat to live in.
Yeah.
But he made that thing look so cool and roomy.
Yeah, too bad those things are probably terrible for me.
They smell, they leak, they're tiny.
Talk about smelling like petrol.
Yeah.
Oof. But, I lived there, man, because it looked like it had enough space. And first time I watched it, I'm like, oh, I could put my drawing table over there. And I didn't have a computer at the time because it was the 80s. I mean, computers existed. We just couldn't afford one. And I was like, oh, my drawing table's over there. And then I'm going to put
Commodore 64 over there.
And then I want my projector television with the red, green, and blue lights. I'm going to have that over here. And then I'm going to have an assortment of trench coats, so I'm cool.
I mean, like Egypt, there's a lot of fertile ground to write Egyptian stories, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, especially if you incorporate the
old gods,
like the mythology, the gods, the lore.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like one day I was fighting a pharaoh. Tomorrow I'm fighting Bast.
Yes, and the Kopashes are fun to mess with. I own one now that I sometimes swing at the air and kill skeletons that aren't there anywhere but my head, just to feel like, so I can write the fight scenes better. I'm sure I look like
Yesterday I was the king of Thebes.
Yeah, that's cool. I dig it. What about you, Nick? You got a secondary where you'd like to tell a story?
I don't know, man. There's so many good stories out there, and I don't want to screw them up. But
You got to find the dark corners of worlds that you like and tell new stories in the dark corners.
Yeah, like I think I would like to write some Conan.
Oh yeah,
You know,
Conan,
I think
or like an analog, like actual Conan, or just
or a Conan-esque type character as like an archetype. Like Beastmaster. Beastmaster is a Conan archetype. You know, I would write. That was like one of my favorite movies as a kid because he had like 2 ferrets and like a panther and shit.
In real life,
oh, that'd be cool if like my 3 best friends is a panther and 2 ferrets. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. If you had a panther, you'd have to name it Pantera.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the other choice is Panthro from Thundercats.
Ooh, Thundercats could be a fun story.
Panthera, I get it. And I was a huge fan of Pantera growing up. So that would jive. Anybody reading that and seeing my name on the cover would be like, yeah, that's classic Nick.
So what about you, Dave? You got other ideas?
Oh, man.
We're just shooting the breeze because we're having fun. So why not let the guests know what we would normally do off camera when the show is over?
The goofy shit we would write. You know, I feel like Star-Lord sometimes when he finds out he's a god. He's like, I'm going to make some weird shit.
Nick's the kind of god that would invent the roundabout just to mess with people.
Oh, dude, if I was a Jedi, there's 100% chance that I would misuse the Force.
Oh, absolutely. I would target a speeding ticket again. Oh, speeding ticket. I won't
tell you what I'd do because then we're going to have to take away the safe for work.
Yeah. Speeding ticket reminds me of the opening scene of Fifth Element where
multi-pass.
Where Corbin, the guy is like
Dallas Corbin.
Driver. Yeah, Dallas Corbin. Like I would drive like that,
points left on your record.
knowing that no one's going to do anything. This was not the driver you wanted, and then you drive off recklessly again.
Oh yeah, because they forgot already.
I'm surprised you haven't decided to tell. Like it's a sub-genre that should be there, but isn't the space fighter to go under Space Fleet and Space Marine of Mill Sci-Fi, like the fighter jock style stories.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like I could see you doing something like that. Nobody does that because they're like, they don't work with science. I don't care. Rule of cool, man.
Dude, rule of cool. Hand wavium, bro. You can get away with anything with hand wavium.
That's my favorite type of wavium.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, I reached into a pocket.
Blu-ray wavium. And it's in high def, but not as cool.
You just throw in quantum something or what's it?
Do you guys just throw quantum in front of everything to make it sound cool?
Yeah, or invert the polarity of the dilithium crystals, or you could be like, oh, a pocket dimension.
Oh my god. Yeah, pocket dimensions. Yeah,
That's basically a bag of holding from D&D.
Makes you want to kick a fat kid at Kmart, man, I swear.
Dude, like I haven't been to Kmart in forever, all right? Stop trying to kick me.
I'm not No, but you remember that show Space Above and Beyond?
Yes.
With the tanks, that they were clones, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's the one that's Arlie
the Wild Cards. Yeah, he was in it a couple times. Yeah, he was one of the flight instructors.
Yeah.
I love that show, and it dealt with the fighter jock aspect of, space combat.
But they were also fighter jocks and like Green Berets,
Navy SEALs,
Navy SEAls. Like they were.
Oh yeah, they're doing some off the wall missions. Dave, you ever watch that show?
No, I don't remember that one.
It is awesome. You need to watch it. It is like
I got like all the seasons. I think there was like 3 or 4 of them.
It is like Stripes meets Top Gun in space.
Oh,
meets SEAL Team.
Yes, but
with a dash of Top Gun.
SEAL Team did give us that cool line: "Trust me with your money and your life, not your car or your wife."
Oh, that was Navy SEALs, man. That was.
That's what I mean. That's
Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, that
trust
line.
Me with your life, not your money or your wife.
Yeah, that's epic. That got quoted a lot. That was almost as quoted as like the Starship Troopers stuff.
Oh, dude.
You apes want to live forever? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, Starship
Soldiers are not unique at all. Like, we're not original at all.
Would you do it if you could? Would you take the Starship Troopers world and write a story?
Yeah, but I would think I would go a little bit more closer to Heinlein's vision as far as what's his name? Vanderkamp or whatever the hell.
Van Hoven, I think.
Van Hoven, yeah. Van Cheesy. Like, that dude's obsessed with Nazism. Like, he's obsessed with fascism. It's crazy.
He survived as a kid. The Germans.
The Holocaust.
Yeah.
It's Austria. I think he's from Austria.
Yeah, I don't know if he was Jewish. I just know that like he survived the occupation as a kid.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a. I think he's
Dutch. I think he's Dutch.
Because if you remember, the first country the Nazis invaded was their own.
Yes. All right. So, what about you, Drew? Would you take a stab at the Starship Troopers universe?
I don't know, man. Like it's a cool concept, but
you'd have to modernize the armor because it was nuclear power based.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't, man. Like
I was surprised you didn't say Star Trek.
I didn't say what?
Star Trek, some angle of Star Trek.
No, man, because the Orville is like the new track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like the Below Decks little series that they have going on. That's pretty funny.
Have you seen that one?
No. Is that the cartoon one?
Yeah. Yeah. It's more comedic side of Trek.
Yeah, I think I saw like 1 or 2 episodes of it. I don't
Essentially, it's Trek trying to be the Orville, is what it is.
It's what?
So
Trek trying to be the
Trek. It's Trek trying to be Orville.
Oh, okay.
But
at least it doesn't have the awful abbreviations that they gave Discovery. Because, Star Trek, the original, Star Trek Next Generation, STTNG, and then Star Trek Discovery, STD. Someone did not think that through.
Yeah, and that show is about as pleasant as an STD.
And that shows you that if they knew their fans, they would have known how that abbreviation was going to be. So either some interns chuckling maniacally, or they didn't know enough about the fans to know how that would play out because it was formulaic.
I was super excited when they announced that show too, because they had like a ship that looked like a hybrid between a Klingon bird of prey and a Federation starship. And then when I watched it, I'm like, "You're trash."
Yeah, I saw the first episode.
Watching you.
Didn't go any further than that.
Okay.
I muscled through the second episode because it was a 2-parter, and I was like, "Nope, first indicator was right. Launch out of the trash bay. Bye."
So what
I canceled Paramount over that?
Dang.
I was pissed. Pissed.
Okay.
I was perturbed, damn you.
Could you see some of the other Trek stuff, like I guess Deep Space Nine or Voyager? Although the Voyager captain, she annoyed me.
Janeway?
Yeah, it's just like all the side quests seemed pointless. Like, you're trying to get home. Why are we doing all these side quests?
She came off as a space Karen.
Yeah, you see that.
Had the haircut. And it's not because she was female. I don't really care. But it did bring in some cool stuff. And, you got 7 of 9 in there.
Yeah.
B'Elanna Torres, she was awesome. I thought she was cool as shit. Like, I was more interested in some of the female characters in Voyager than I was the male ones.
Because they were better acted, I think. There's the selection.
I think so, too. I mean, except for Tom Paris. Paris was cool.
Yeah. I think
he was also in a previous episode of Star Trek TNG. They just changed the name, but it was the same character.
I liked the Babylon 5. I don't know that you could take the campy out of it enough to make it work for a modern audience. But do you guys remember the show Andromeda?
Oh, I love that show.
With Kevin
what was her name? It wasn't Tori Hatcher.
I don't remember the actress who was like that. But
I remember her being just unrealistically hot and exotic looking.
Yeah, and I like the idea.
I watched it just for that.
I also like the idea of frozen in time, coming back to life, so he's a man out of time.
Those are the best stories.
Yeah, those are. And then I also like that the ship had an AI that was given flesh, so that like she
was super duper hot.
Like, even if it wasn't her, like just the concept alone is intriguing. Like the idea of a living ship.
Yeah.
I mean, the Wraiths did it in Stargate Atlantis as well. Their ships were organic.
You're dead to me. I never watched that show.
Wasn't the ship in Farscape organic as well?
I think so, actually. Did you ever watch Farscape, Nick?
I watched a few episodes. It's on my list of things to watch before I die.
Yeah, I got a really long list too. But yeah,
I got my blood pressure checked, and that I might need to speed that up I don't know.
So yeah, there's a lot of worlds that could be fun to play with and ideas, but I always revert back to like the everyman. Like, you throw me a reservist or a militiaman or a draftee, and like I could give you some fun stories.
Well, the battle hardened hero aspect is kind of played out, and it gets boring. You know, the guy that he's done it all, he's seen it all, he's prepared for every situation. I think that's boring as shit. And like, if I want a Superman, I'll read Superman. Okay.
Well, the other part of that is there's just more room for a longer arc if he's newer in the journey. Like, you don't start with the guy that's already a general.
Well, yeah.
And think
you get to join him on the learning curve.
Yeah. Which is
Those
why a
are
lot of
interesting
the
stories.
Yeah, the military starts with the private who goes through the ranks promotion, somehow becomes a Mustang, and you've got a series of from private to colonel kind of thing.
My life story, except I didn't make it to colonel.
It's because you didn't shut up enough. You told people what you really thought.
Well, because I'm a Mustang, man. My Joes expected that. They expected the enlisted man sensibility and common sense with the authority of an officer who didn't really care if he made it past captain, which was me. Well, it's like, so that's a great plan, sir. That if you want everyone to die.
So before we wrap this up, I got one more question for you, Dave, because we're just having fun, but I promised you we wouldn't go that long. So if you were going to write a space fighter story, would you go with the Top Gun, cocky, badass angle, or would you write them more dry but accurate, boring pilot that we see in modernity, and then make everyone else the cool kids, like the maintainers and stuff?
Oh, man, I would have to, having been the maintainer, I think it would be nice to write from that perspective. And one of the things about being in the fighter community is a lot of those pilots kind of think they're Top Gun. So I think it would be easy to write something that was kind of funny as the maintainers kind of poke fun at and imitate the cocky Top Gun pilots, you know. That'd probably be kind of a fun thing to do.
I could see that. Or you could do a situation where he's the maintainers in the cockpit doing whatever, you know, starting the engines or whatever, and suddenly something happens and the autopilot like takes over and launches you into space because the alert goes off, and now you got the wrench puller suddenly flying the fighter jet. Like, oh crap, what do I do? That could be fun.
No.
I used to be turn-coiled whenever I was working on those jets, so I'd be the guy on the flight deck turning the engines on, and sometimes I wondered what would happen if these chains broke and this thing started going off, you know?
Yeah.
I have to learn how to fly on the fly, you know?
If you write that story, because I just gave you the idea, I want the screw up who, you know, gets the Porta-John named after him to be JR. You can do that for me, and then you come back and we'll talk about it, because that's a kind of funny idea.
I'd read that story. Like, you know, a maintenance dude that now has to fly a Tomcat because the chains broke. I'd be like,
yeah, in space.
An interesting predicament.
Space Tomcat. That reminds me of a Starship. Or no, The Last Starfighter would be another one. That would be fun.
I love that movie so much.
I did too, and the chick was so hot. I can't remember her name, but dude, if you're a man of a certain age, yeah.
She was also the chick in The Night of the Comet.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, she was the big sister. She was the gun-ho one. Like, Daddy would have got it. Well, no, that was the sister's line. But yeah, the Last Starfighter. I've been hoping for a sequel. You know, the premise is awesome. You play a video game, and that's a recruitment tool to get you into the program. You know,
they actually
was awesome.
People sell kits because they've never made that game. So somebody designed it and designed the frame so you could build your own arcade and have that game in there. Super fans put that together.
I got to find it because the intro to that game in the movie was so intense. It's like, oh, well, greetings, Starfighter. You've now been recruited into Starfighter Legion to fight the whatever armada. You know, I'm like, oh shit, I'm in. Let's do this.
Yeah, I'm digging that. That would be another fun one. All right. Well,
that was great.
We could keep doing this all night, but I don't want to put him to sleep because he might have to work tomorrow. So we're gonna.
I think I'm gonna call out sick tomorrow. They can find somebody else to pilot the
boat. Before we let you go, dear listeners, this is the part where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platform. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. So do your part. Dave could really use the reviews of the Confederation Saga so he can get more sales out there.
We want to see those 12 books made, man.
Absolutely. And with that being said, leave the reviews, people. Do your part. Dave, how can listeners find you on the Wild Wild interwebs? And as usual, links will be in the show notes.
They can find me on Amazon. And on athonbooks.com, you can find my books. And then using my real name, Drew Avra, on Amazon, drewavra.com. I have a Facebook presence too. I just don't want to juggle two names. It gets confusing. And I'm a simple man.
I mean, as long as your wife's not getting it mixed up, you're good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's my pen name. How could you?
Yeah. I feel so.
You feel so cheated. I'm so dirty. All right. You can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the bit shoots, the rumbles, the Twitters, the email at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for serious business inquiries only. We have the Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page where all the shenanigans happen. And last but not least, we have Madam Stabby Stab's Instagram, Twitter, and email for all the cool shenanigans. If you want her to make you cry, reach out, people. But we will not be held responsible for your hurt feelings. And when in doubt, if you're not watching, this is where we remind you it's always Nick's fault. So, with that being said, you could follow us on our website at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where for as little as 99 cents a month, you can help keep the lights on. These episodes are not free to produce, and every penny counts, so we greatly appreciate your patronage. You could also support the show more directly over at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink until it pops out of their eyeballs. Speaking of drinking the calf, we are affiliated with Coffee Brand Coffee for all the greatest, most delicious American-made coffees, teas, and hot cocos. They've got candies as well. I'm trying some of their hot chocolate actually as soon as we're done with the show. It's delicious. The marshmallows only. I probably will add a little bit of fortification to it for reasons, science, chemistry. Yeah,
hashtag reasons.
That's right. But yeah, so you can support us over there. Use the link in the show notes and our code podcast grunts and you get 10% off. And what's not to love about a 10% discount? So that also helps. And Nick and family over there, the Garber household on the other coast, the wrong coast, the west coast, they drink it too. We're all addicts at this point. So you're just feeding our addiction, and we love you for it, dear listener, dear viewer.
I blame the Army for my caffeine addiction.
As do I. Drew, Dave, he doesn't have that excuse because Navy, but they drink their coffee so strong it holds the spoon up for emotional support.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's thick like mud.
Yeah.
It's practically crude oil.
I'm not convinced that there isn't crude oil in there for effect because it's kind of strong.
I spent a week on the USS Denver, and I had some of their coffee, and damn, I was halfway to shore before I realized I wasn't on a boat.
True story. True story. The funniest thing with Navy coffee is we were doing a resupply to a base that's in southwestern Iraq, right around on the berm. It was a prison for people that were not cool enough to go to Abu Ghraib. They were considered a little less popular, a little more bad guy angle. I'm not being like circumspect because of OPSEC. I just can't remember the base's name anymore. But when we were resupplying them, it was being manned at the time by Navy Master at Arms instead of MPs for the prison guards. And we get there and the roads were hot because it was a sandstorm, and then they blacked out because insurgents decided to show us they loved us. And so they call gun trucks up. It's every man on the wall. It doesn't matter if you're assigned to the unit or not. So we're standing there like man in the line with everyone else in the middle of a sandstorm. And this rather rotund Navy chief wearing his khakis instead of his camis, with his belt, his webbing belt like cinched under his gut, with a pistol just flapping because he didn't secure it at the leg, with a cup of coffee in one hand and a cigar in the other. Like, it's a nice day, isn't it, there, Sergeant? I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? And he just was strolling around,
dude.
Like, they're shooting at us. Like, you're a big target, Sergeant or Chief. But he just had no F's to give. I mean, he didn't spill a drop of coffee, so he gets bonus points.
You got to respect it. You got to respect it.
I am told the Chief test requires you to survive a hurricane without spilling a drop. That is the test. Is there
used to be you had to have a DUI, a divorce, and assault charges to make chief.
Okay. Well, they got weaker then. Now they just got to survive a typhoon and like not spill their coffee.
Yeah.
You almost got me this time, guys.
But anyway, that's the fun thing. That kind of trope, like if I wrote that in a story that really happened, people go, this is too fake. Nobody's really like that. And I'm like, no, I was there. That was him. You probably met chiefs like that too, didn't you?
Yeah. That's a bunch of weird guys.
That's the great thing about the military. If we wrote some of what really happened, people were like, that's not real.
They'll never believe it. The truth is always stranger than fiction.
I actually had to edit out a story about when an RPG went in my window, over my head, out the other window, because me and the driver bent down at the same time. Him to light a cigar, me to grab a Gatorade, and it just went through the window. Half a second in either direction, it's hitting the metal, and we're gone. It just went. I got the burn scar on my neck from that one, and I'm just like, oh, I should play the lottery today. And if I wrote that in a book, and the publisher was like, no one's ever going to believe that. I'm like, I've got the incident statement. What are you talking about? Because we had to get treated for the burns, man. But anyway, that's the fun part about mill sci-fi, and well, mill fantasy is becoming an up and up thing. So it's those stories that no one would believe if you tell them, but you're using real life for them. You know?
Did anybody believe that like during a training exercise, the base was being attacked? Your young protagonist runs out in nothing but body armor, his rifle, flip-flops, and ranger panties that he cut the crime fighters out and his balls were hanging out one side.
I mean, I've seen that. There's that guy on the New York Times that was wearing just his boxers that had the pink hearts on them.
Yeah.
Which is very clear. It had gone through the washing people because it had faded. That was why everything was pink, because it was probably white.
It was red, which makes it
white and red, and now it's all pink.
You know how they on the flight deck, whenever they're launching the aircraft, you have the guys in the back when everything's under tension and it's about to take off. They do the thumbs up. I'm trying to get my hands in the they do the thumbs up at the plane, and they launch off. Well, there's 4 different catapults on a carrier, and one of them is really close to where the camera is, and the cameras tend to zoom in when that one's about to launch. So one of the guys decided it would be funny to cut a slit in his pants and pull his balls out. And whenever he's in the squatting position to do that and throw the thumbs up, that's when this camera zoomed in. And on the plat, which can be viewed by any television plugged in on the ship, zoomed in on it, people could see his balls kind of dangling down a little bit.
Did he get in trouble?
No, nobody knew, but that was happening, but you can go back and look at some of that footage after the fact. It's like, oh man, you can kind of see them kind of dangling now.
That is awesome.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, the angles were all off to really be able to get a good glimpse at it. But
I'd say the best military stories is when someone's balls are hanging out.
Yeah, or just when you get to that point where you've got no F's to give, like
Those 120 degrees out there, and the guy's like, dude, it's so hot. He goes, I just want to hang my balls out. And someone's like, but you won't do it. And the guy like literally took a blade and cut his pants open and like pulled his balls out. Like,
hell yeah.
Nowhere in modern regular civilization would that take place, and people laugh about it and it'd be accepted. But on a flight deck in the Persian Gulf, it's like, oh, that guy's balls was out. Cool, man.
One day we're gonna find a discovery in from ancient Rome, where it's like he's just chiseled it on the ground. He's like, and then it was so hot outside, I just pulled my balls out.
Oh yeah, that's gonna happen. But so this is
not paintings of that shit.
So we gave them unintentionally an extra hour of what our post show looks like, but I guess we got to wrap that up because he's got work in the morning. So thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host and Mr. Drew Avera, sometimes cosplaying as Dave Alexander, we appreciate you spending some of your time with us. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. Thank you for coming on, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, Nick.
Man. I'm always on, dude.